Hi everybody, welcome to Christian Homestead. My name is Jared. I got an email from Woodcraft Supply Corner. Subject line, Northern Lights, Arizona, July 3rd. You guys, we are living in strange times, and the Lord is being so generous in giving us signs of the times. There are so many that I feel like it's just so obvious the time in which we live. And this one really interests me because there's a lot of interesting things that go along with this that I think makes it clear the time in which we live. So before I continue with the email, I was aware that there was the potential for another big aurora display that could be seen through most, if not all, of the United States. I saw a post on X, or maybe it was on Facebook, and it was talking about the fact that the sun had shot off a number of CMEs, or coronal mass ejections. In fact, it described it as like a machine gun effect. And so, as I always do, I came to this website by the University of Alaska, Fairbanks. They have an Aurora Forecast. And on the day that I checked it, it was all red throughout the day, which would have meant that there was a good chance of seeing the aurora here in Missouri if it had been nighttime. But on that day, once you got to nighttime, the forecast tapered off. It was in the 5 and 6 range for the KP index, and that's what it's been in previous forecasts before big aurora displays. But it was daytime, and then by nighttime, it dipped down into the 4s and 3s. Well, it ended up being a 7, and you live and learn. I guess in the future, if there's ever anything like this, I'm gonna check what things look like at night, even if it seems that the forecast tapers off, because this time there was an aurora seen as far south as Arizona. Let's go back to the email. Hi, Jared. We got to see the Northern Lights in Arizona tonight. They're still kind of going on here. Wondered if you saw them there. And unfortunately, no. But next time I'll make sure to check anyway. Here's a couple of photos. The first one shows that I didn't edit it. As you can see, there's no revert image. The second one shows you where I'm at in Arizona. Okay, so, yep, here's the proof that Woodcraft Supply Corner did not edit this. I still would have believed you. And then here's the second image. So, as you'd expect, it's a little bit faint, being that far south, but it was still visible. Sometimes you have to use your camera and use long exposure or night mode to see it. Sometimes it's not visible to the naked eye. But yeah, it looks like it was there. And Woodcraft Supply Corner sent a couple follow-up emails. In this one, they added, tonight's are not as bold as November's as of right now, but this is twice now under President Oaks. And now things start to get interesting as we get into the things surrounding this aurora display. It's interesting because we had 2 big ones during President Nelson's presidency, and already with President Oaks, there's been 2 more. And he hasn't even hit his year mark yet. I can't think of any other president of the church where there's been 2 big aurora displays like what we've seen with President Nelson and President Oaks. But there's more. We'll talk about more in just a second. And then in another email, Woodcraft Supply Corner pointed to a number of like social media posts where they were seeing it too and posting it. We're going to look at a couple of those. Here's an article. G3 solar storm sparks rare 4th of July auroras across U.S. Okay, so 2 times during President Nelson, now 2 times already with President Oaks. And then on top of that, on the 4th of July, it had to be on the 4th of July. It doesn't matter if it was 4th of July night or in the morning hours. It was on the 4th of July. Okay, unexpected storm strength. Let me zoom in. A predicted G1 to G2 geomagnetic storm intensified to G3, something that I clearly didn't know was going to happen, producing auroras much farther south than anticipated. Holiday sky spectacle. The July 3rd to 4th event coincided with 4th of July fireworks, creating a rare dual light show for millions across the US. Oh, so it's saying that this happened during the night as well of July 4th. And then it goes on. Here it talks about how it went as far south as Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, and Northern California. So unfortunately, there isn't any report that I can refer to that tells me exactly where it was seen, but that should give you a sense of how far south. On Facebook, there's, a bunch of people posting about it. This is the night sky guy in New Mexico. Looks pretty vibrant there. I don't know if this is just because of long exposure or if that's how it actually looked. But New Mexico, here's another person in New Mexico. Photography by Jim Crotty in Placitas, New Mexico. It looks pretty visible there, even if he is using long exposure. And then here's one in Arizona. So meteorologist Chris Nunley, Northern Lights in Arizona tonight. This is Tuba City. Okay, so it happened again. I was already blown away back in 2024 when I was living in South Central Kansas, about an hour south of Wichita, and I saw it for the first time in my life. I never expected to see the aurora, like I've said many times before. But there I was, in the heartland of America, seeing the Northern Lights, and that was not the only time that I've seen them with my own eyes. So what I did is I have a spreadsheet called Signs United States. So I added this event to this spreadsheet because it could be a sign for the United States. It happened on the 4th of July. I highly doubt there have been other times that this kind of thing has happened on the 4th of July. At least you'd probably have to go really far back. Okay, so I put that here. I don't know if I just haven't been keeping on top of these spreadsheets. That I haven't put anything on here since November of last year. The last potential sign that we have for this spreadsheet is the longest government shutdown in U.S. history. You guys remember that? So I don't know. There's probably been more, but there's only so much I can do. And the thing about it is, it's not just any 4th of July. It's not just any 4th of July. This is America 250, the 250th anniversary of the United States. Now, I didn't watch this, but you have music in the spoken word. There was a special edition of it, a special performance where they had the head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs, Andy Reid. He has been on my radar even before I moved to Missouri, just because when I started this channel, I started to think more and more about independence, Jackson County, Missouri, and its future. And the Kansas City Chiefs plays here in the Kansas City metro area. You might as well call them the New Jerusalem Chiefs. And he's a member of the church. We've talked about him a number of times. There's been interesting things, but I love how much has been going on in church news, in social media, between the church and Kansas City, whether it's the Chiefs, whether it's the giving machines, which I think it's because of the Chiefs, and also the Kansas City Royals. And just, it feels like there's more and more going on between Salt Lake and Kansas City. But President Oaks was there. There's a picture of him Down here somewhere, he was wearing an American flag tie. Where is it? Right there. There's him, President Uchtdorf, and Elder Cook. And there's his American flag tie. Okay, so we're talking about this unusual aurora. They're already rare enough. We've already had some rare ones, but now this one on July 4th, not just any July 4th, but the 250th anniversary of the United States. And that's not all. I added this to my Second Coming timeline. This is like my master timeline of everything that I think is significant to church history and things leading up to the Second Coming. So this also coincides with something that we've never seen before in church history. On July 1st, there were 55 new missions created, a record-breaking number. Before that, the record was broken. When was it? It was like 2025, I think, or maybe 2024, when there were like 36 new missions created. But then just fast forward, to now, and now it's 55 new missions. So that was created, and then we had this G3, or strong geomagnetic storm, seen across more than 30 states as far south as Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, and Northern California. And this was the day before another rare thing took place. President Oaks asked the church in the United States to do a special fast to express gratitude for religious freedom and also to expand religious freedom, not just in the United States, but throughout the world. It turns out that these like large scale fasts are rare. I did a study into it, searched as much as I could. And there's essentially only been like 4 times that I could find where the church did some kind of like large scale fast, whether it was just the United States, whether it was worldwide. So you had 2 times in 1985 for Ethiopia, for famine in Ethiopia. So you had that one. You had the one for the earthquake and tsunami that struck Southeast Asia in 2004. And then you had 2 in 2020 that President Nelson called for the pandemic. And now you have this 4th occasion. Again, the I can't remember what it's called, but the 250th anniversary for the United States and expressions of gratitude for religious freedom and wanting religious freedom to expand. In the video that I did about that, I talked about the fact that President Kimball asked the church to pray day and night that doors would be open for countries that we at that time didn't have access to. At that time, we had the Soviet Union, and now we've entered those countries, and we have temples in some of those countries. So could this special fast, could this open the door to China, Cuba, North Korea? I don't think anything's impossible. But almost as though to highlight this, we have this unusual aurora display that took place. It didn't take place a week before. It didn't take place a week after. It happened on the 4th of July. And the next day we did this special fast. I want to point out some of the other ones that we've seen and just the unusual times that we're living in. I always like to bring this up whenever we're talking about these type of things, whenever we're talking about signs in the heavens. 3 Nephi chapter 2, verses 1 through 3. And it came to pass that thus passed away the 95th year also, and the people began to forget those signs and wonders which they had heard, and began to be less and less astonished at a sign or a wonder from heaven. This is a warning to us. Now, this is now like the 4th one that I've covered on my channel. And I feel like it's starting to wear off. When that first one hit, back in May of 2024, social media, at least like on Facebook, my personal Facebook feed, it was like nothing but Aurora pictures. Like the whole thing, like my whole screen was just like pink and purple and green, basically. Like everybody was losing their minds because for so many, it was the first time in their life that they'd ever seen the aurora for themselves. Myself included, I was filling up social media with the pictures I was taking. Are we getting to this point though? Are we becoming less and less astonished at a sign or a wonder from heaven? It continues, insomuch that they began to be hard in their hearts and blind in their minds, and began to disbelieve all which they had heard and seen, imagining up some vain thing in their hearts that it was wrought by men or by the power of the devil, to lead away and deceive the hearts of the people. And thus did Satan get possession of the hearts of the people again, insomuch that he did blind their eyes and lead them away to believe that the doctrine of Christ was a foolish and a vain thing. Or maybe in our case, that the idea of the second coming is a foolish and a vain thing. And it came to pass that the people began to wax strong in wickedness and abominations, and they did not believe that there should be any more signs or wonders given. And Satan did go about leading away the hearts of the people, tempting them and causing them that they should do great wickedness in the land. That being said, I have updated my spreadsheet called Signs Church Specific. So I've added some details to some of these other Aurora events because I did some more research for this video. So I updated some stuff. And I actually created a new spreadsheet for auroras. I didn't have one up until this point. So this is called Signs Auroras. So let's just do a little review of what we know so far, or at least what I know. On April 6th, the Savior's birthday and the day that the church was established of the year 2000, so the day that he would have turned 2,000 years old. And on the day that the Palmyra, New York temple was dedicated, the 77th temple of the church, there was something called the Great Aurora and Geomagnetic Storm of April 6th to 7th. It was a G4 or severe geomagnetic storm. And all that I could gather with the additional research is that it could be seen in the southern United States. There wasn't anything that mentioned specific states, but I'm willing to bet that this was basically one of these type of events that we've experienced recently. So one of those happened on April 6th of the year 2000, on the day that the Palmyra, New York temple was dedicated. The temple of the sacred grove, essentially, the first vision. Does it come as a surprise to you? It probably shouldn't. I found out that a few years later, there were two G5 or extreme geomagnetic storms, the both of them being called the Great Halloween Solar Storms of 2003. It was actually kind of like a it seemed like it was probably like a multi-week event. There was just like a lot of solar activity for a few weeks. And some of that activity included these two extreme storms. And so the aurora could be seen as far south as Texas, Florida, Georgia, New Mexico, Arizona, Oklahoma, and Alabama. So that sounds similar to what we've seen more recently. And then fast forward to 2024. I did a video where I can't remember where I saw it, but basically the way that I've substantiated it was with this. There's an article by KHMO Radio. Video shows northern lights over Missouri, but that's impossible. There's this guy on YouTube. He's like a sky watcher, and he like has like a telescope and camera going every night watching the sky. And on this particular day, April 19th of that year of 2024, And by the way, he's not too far from Adamantium, just 26 miles away. He saw an aurora. And the reason why it made news is because there wasn't supposed to be an aurora that day. So it was a mystery. An aurora seen not too far from Adamantium wasn't forecast, so I took note of it. But what's interesting is that that wasn't the only aurora event that took place in 2024. Okay, there were 3 more. So, May 10th, there was a G5 geomagnetic storm. So, this is the strongest storm since 2003. So, a little over 20 years had gone by, and now we have this next G5 storm. And it resulted, or it was caused by 7 coronal mass ejections. And not the video, but like the little animation that NASA or NOAA, I can't remember who, they put together this animation showing the CMEs like making their way to Earth. And that animation is really impressive, showing these 7. Whenever we're talking about 7, especially in a second coming context, we think about the symbolism of 7. It's used a lot in the book of Revelation. It basically means it symbolizes in this context the completion of God's work before the second coming, or before the millennium. So 7 CMEs, strongest geomagnetic storm since 2003, and it was seen in nearly all 50 states. I think it was seen in all 50 states. I saw all over social media. It seemed like it was. But that resulted in images like this. These are the type of images that flooded social media that day and for the next few days. This is a picture that I took in Kansas on the border with Oklahoma. And it was pretty intense. This is what it actually looked like to the naked eye. For a little bit, you did have to use the long exposure because, like, at first, when it's not very strong, it kind of just looks like clouds, or like you know how city lights, they reflect off clouds when it's overcast. Like, it kind of looked like that, like just misty clouds. But then when you took a picture with your phone with night mode, then it would show up. But then later on in the night, it strengthened, and this is actually what it looked like. It's fascinating because this happened 2 months after this happened. This was, a month after this happened. So in March of that year, the church purchased the Kirtland Temple from Community of Christ. And then the next month, and the day after General Conference, there was the total solar eclipse, and the path of totality went over the newly purchased Kirtland Temple, and I was there to see it. This is a picture taken by one of my subscribers who was also there, Floyd Gowans, and thank you for the picture if you're watching. So this happened, and then the month after that, this happened. This happened, and then this happened across the United States, and not just the United States. Other parts of the world saw it too, like in Europe and other places. And then in October, we had this. President Nelson, who had talked about the Second Coming so much throughout his presidency up until that point, he gave his one big Second Coming talk in the October General Conference of 2024. The Lord Jesus Christ will come again, and this is such a fascinating talk for so many reasons. There's a chiasmus pattern to it. He shows this picture of the Second Coming 2 times. He brings up the glory of the Lord from Isaiah chapter 40, verse 5, which is a second. There's a lot to this talk. I'm not going to reanalyze it here. And then what happened was, fast forward to October 6th, which incidentally was the Sunday, or the day that President Nelson spoke. This is new to me, by the way. This is new. I didn't know this until today. That night, There was a G1 to G2 minor to moderate geomagnetic storm, and the aurora was seen in 30 states, as far south as Alabama. I think I missed this one. I am pretty sure I'd have to check the dates, but the one that I saw was the one that came 4 days later. But there was kind of a minor one before the big one in October. And it was on the Sunday night of General Conference, the same day that President Nelson gave his second coming talk. All this is just a little bit too coincidental, don't you think? Don't you think the Palmyra, New York Temple, April 6th of the year 2000, the day that President Nelson gives his second coming talk, the 4th of July on the 250th anniversary of the United States, as 55 new missions are created and President Oaks calls for a nationwide fast for religious freedom. Are you serious? And there's still some people that would just brush this off and be like, oh, it's just coincidence. It sure is a lot of coincidence, isn't it? Okay, so yeah, so you had that. And then 4 days later, there was a larger one. It was a G4 severe geomagnetic storm. It was seen as far south as Texas. And from what I saw, it was all over the United States, from just people posting on X and Facebook and social media. And this was the week after the week after General Conference, and it produced images like this, very similar to the one in May. Not as strong, but still pretty vibrant. And yes, this is what it actually looked like to the naked eye where I was. This is actually one of my favorite pictures right here. You just see these massive, I don't know what these are called, grain bins. I don't think these are silos. Maybe they're silos, but just red sky. It looks totally ominous. And then by this point, I have friends that live near the Kirtland Temple. They were able to go and take pictures of the aurora above the Kirtland Temple. So I don't know how many pictures there are like this, but I'm glad that they were able to capture these. It's pretty incredible. So in the same year that we saw this above the Kirtland Temple, we also saw this. I don't know how often the aurora is seen in Ohio. It is, I think, further north. It's got to be further north than Missouri. I don't know. I don't know how often it's seen there. You'll have to let me know if you live there. And then let's go back to this. We're almost done here. On November 11th, there was so now President Oaks at this point is president of the church. There was a G4 severe geomagnetic storm. The aurora was seen as far south as Arizona, Florida, and Texas. And it was the night of the 11th and the 12th, which is important because that was the exact midpoint. That was the exact midpoint between the death dates of President Russell M. Nelson and President Jeffrey R. Holland. I put together a spreadsheet to show that. I just have all the days here. So President Nelson passed away on September 27th of 2025. And then here you have, you see this countdown right here in column D with red. So you count down, get to 46 days. There's the aurora. And then you start counting another 46 days. And that brings you to the day that President Holland passed away. So there, for some reason, the Lord's purposes, there was an aurora exactly in between their death dates. It may be assigned to their families. It may be assigned to the church. It may be assigned to the world. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just taking note. All I know is that I was able to go to the temple lot and take some really amazing pictures. I don't know if there's anybody else out there that has pictures of the aurora from the temple lot, but I feel very blessed to have seen this in person and to have gotten these pictures. It was an incredible night. And And it was pretty vibrant too. This is actually what it looked like to the naked eye when I was taking these pictures. I wish it would have lasted longer. I wanted to get one of the Independence Visitor Center in the foreground, but it didn't happen. And then I got other pictures that some of you sent in of just like various temples. I think this is the, oh, well, I don't need to guess. I have it right here. So this is the Layton, Utah temple. You can see the Aurora. This is the Pocatello, Idaho temple. So let's see, this was May, and then the Layton temple, that was also May. Rainbow. Okay, this one is May, the Logan, Utah temple. And this is also May, the Smithfield, Utah temple. And I think that might... Oh, this one's October. This is the Manti temple in like central Utah. And I think that's all I have by way of Aurora photos. So you put it all together, it's too much. It's too much to just dismiss, you guys. Let's not be silly. It's too much to dismiss. I am pretty sure that this is the type of thing that the Nephites were seeing in the skies in the lead up to Christ coming to them. And we've seen so many other things. We've seen eclipses, both, you know, solar eclipses and lunar eclipses, and there's been a lot of stuff. But one of the ones that just stands out the most to me are these auroras, just because it's so unusual. These are things that I never thought I would ever see for myself. And for them to happen on these very special days and these coincidental days, it's amazing. It's amazing. The second coming it's on its way, you guys. I promise you. All right. Well, that's going to be it for this one. I'll talk to you guys later.